I'm going to introduce this to you as a concept that envy is actually a very mean drug. And I have a frog in the throat again. I got the frog in the throat. Don't worry, I'm part Irish, so I'm not using cultural appropriation. I'm actually part Irish and part English. In fact, one of my female ancestors, as my mother used to tell me, was a lady in waiting. I could only imagine it was for Queen Victoria, but who knows? Who knows? It's very interesting. Sometimes people receive emotional wounds in their childhood and they can't understand why it happened. But because, I don't know, like there's some song called The System of a Down. It happens because things have gone awry, shall we say. Have gone awry. So I come by my English accent quite rightly. One of my female ancestors was a lady in waiting. But I don't necessarily like to listen to British accents because it just kind of, being part German, it's not really, shut up. Okay, whatever. I mean, I have a kid that hates the English people. I said, why do you hate the English people? You know, my dad always loved the English people. Hitler loved the English people. He loved them so much he love bombed them. Now that's pretty precious. So I see advertisements for clinics. I'm an old person. I'm going to go to the old person facility and I'm going to get treated right. You know. Wouldn't it be nice to be treated right when you're young? Because from the very beginning, it seems as if something went awry. And I know I already used the word awry. I remember, you see. Well, we can talk about the ostracism which occurred after Noah's flood, where Noah declared, you're going to be a slave, you're going to be a slave to everybody. He was so mad, he was so upset. We're not sure what happened. I've heard different theories. You know, that's the thing about, if you listen to these Bible teachers, some of them say, well, something bad happened. And then other people say, a well, different bad thing happened. And because it's deliberately ambiguous, perhaps we don't need to know. Sometimes kids say things, I don't know what they're talking about, but because it's ambiguous, perhaps I don't need to know. If I needed to know, then God would tell me, or something would happen, or one of the kids would tell me. I've even been in my own kitchen, and my third youngest son actually gave me the middle finger just casually, like he's scratching his head. And, you know, I pretended I didn't notice. I thought, that's just, you're baptized in the same church as your dad was baptized in. How could you do that to your mother? Don't the 10 Commandments specify? Honor thy father and thy mother. So lately I've been praying that people would love me as a mother, because I am a mother, that my children would love me as a mother. Not to exclude the grandmother who feels excluded, thinks, you're trying to usurp my role. I'm the most important. It's difficult dealing with personality disorders in relatives who are covert narcissists who mask their envy very well. Who can stand before envy? If you're groomed, sometimes I say, hey, you really shouldn't be doing that. Hey, you need to do this. But I never put somebody down based on their physical characteristics. You're ugly, you're fat, stupid isn't a physical characteristic, but oftentimes stupid is obvious, I guess. I remember it differently. One time you criticized me for being too fat. You criticized me for being stupid. Well, here's my official apology. I'm sorry about that, but that happened to me. When I was a kid, I was criticized so many times by my own father for being fat, and my mother just stood by and just secretly, she's just like laughing. Now this little girl gets her comeuppance. Now she doesn't feel so loved anymore, does she? When you grow up in a dysfunctional family dynamic, you can expect this sort of thing. Our generation, which would include all of us who are alive, we're actually part of the same generation. I could be like typing blah, blah, blah into my phone and spelling words wrong or having things auto-corrected, and then they spelled my phrase wrong because they're in ignoramus on the AI. Ay, ay, ay. Wouldn't it be better to use your voice to talk to people? Oh no, voices hurt my feelings. I would rather just go on and be groomed on. I remember one of the last conversations I had with my oldest daughter before she left, and totally, you would think that everybody else but I was a saint. To treat me the way she's treated me, I'm sorry, I apologize. I was trying to get my degree from Liberty University. I succeeded in that, because I was brought up to, well, you have to be intelligent. My mother didn't like her mother very much. In fact, whenever she mentioned her mother, it was almost always in very disparaging terms. In fact, when I was in the 7th grade, my grandmother, who lived in Florida at the time, sent me this little booklet from, was it Ann Landers or Dear Abby? Because they were sisters. How to keep yourself pure. Now, because a boy says he loves you, don't necessarily cooperate with what he wants to do to you. Because that's not love, that's lust. And, the fact is, my mother had been inappropriately treated by her own uncle. Only my dad could tell me this. My mother never told me what happened. It's like, why didn't you tell me, Mother? Because you weren't drinking at the time. I couldn't trust you because you're some kind of like a fanatical Christian. I can't tell. If my uncle had done what your uncle did to you, I'd be messed up too. She never told me, but they would always send like these little certificates for Wendy's Frosties in Christmas cards, and my mother would just say, oh, they're just so cheap. They're so cheap. They don't. Well, who can pay for the loss of your innocence? I understand, but why couldn't you be honest with your own daughter? Well, perhaps because my father was a narcissistic triangulator. I would have loved nothing more than to be close to my mother. But my father was so insecure. Listen, they're going to be talking about me behind my back, how terrible I am. Father, you have to confess your sins, and God is willing to forgive if you freely confess. God will forgive. But the triangulation happens in families. It occurs, shall I say. It occurs. I wanted to be close to my maternal aunt. And when she came to visit me after my parents' divorce, she just gave me such a cold shoulder. You wonder what people are saying about you behind your back. Why, she's just... it might have been, I know it was when my mother was still alive. And, I suppose psychologically I'm still a little girl because I was just so improperly treated, and the family dynamic was so messed up that I even said, I think people talk about you more than they talk to you. Your mother is supposed to be the person who cares about you. Are you okay today, honey? Are you all right? And now I don't have that opportunity to even talk to my daughters because I said some mean things. But of course, we're a product of our environment. My dad was just mean as paint. Mean as all get out. He was just a mean. If he was upset, it didn't bother him at all if he called you a horrible name, like which he would do to my mother, and which he would do to me if he felt like, if I'm having a bad day, like I would get up when I was still living at home. As a teenager, I would get up for breakfast in the morning. He'd just bark some insult at me. Dad, all I'm doing is existing. I'm just trying to brew some coffee here. He's barking at me. What a troubled human being he was. And, as human beings, we have to realize that, maybe that's why I'm not showing my face. I want you to associate me with a generation, just a person just like you. You might be, well, I know the internet slang better than you do. Well, just be careful. Don't use that slang. My mother never warned me about anything. She wore a lot of makeup. In fact, she was an Avon lady. You never hear about the Avon lady, but the Avon lady used to come calling on you and just, I'm going to sell you all this makeup. My mom got all these awards for being a really good Avon lady. But that's just I have to keep going back to the phrase lipstick on a pig. I don't know why I keep going back to that phrase, and God forgive me if I've done something wrong. I always thought that my mother was very beautiful and very intelligent, and yet I think in her heart and her soul she felt that she had to really keep other people down so that she could feel superior, and that's a common... I think tall people are often that way. Short people can be that way too. Well, I've done everything. What have you done, you unintelligent little... Fill in the rest of the blanks. Starts with an S, ends with a T. If you keep thinking that about a person in your mind, that person eventually will become that person. Maybe her mother was very mean and went on drunken rants and called her an S. as to the T, right? Maybe her mother's mother had done that. Well, if I lost more weight, people would like me better. You don't need to get braces, you just need to lose weight. As long as there are 6,000 people, 6,000-pound people out there, 600-pound people out there. I mean, if I'm a little bit plump, I really don't give a darn. Losing weight will not make people like me. I'm sure of that. But the teenagers believe it. I used to go on starvation diets. I was just very briefly bulimic. Look, I'm such much a better person. I have a better life because I'm not so fat. Maybe there are fat people listening right now, but they don't show their profile picture because they're really fat and they're ashamed. My dad constantly berated me as being a fat person all the time when by the time I hit puberty, you fat pig! You call other people fat pigs. He just hates people being fat. And his own mother said, well, Willie eats too much. So we have, India and I have that in common. Like, we don't pronounce words the same as English speaking people do. We always say we. Do we? Yes, we do. You're not able to pronounce the word W without saying it as we. Why can't you be honest about the conflict in your house? It'd be a good first step. Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.